Hi, friends. Host Eric here with somebody you may recognize, Aimee Y. You see, I have us each on pedestals in this video. Aimee can't see that, but I put each of us on our own pedestal against an office space background. So,
Okay.
um, so Aimee contacted me saying she had some questions or topics she'd like to discuss regarding ESFP, TI polar, and those kind of related topics. If you're familiar with the channel, you may recognize her as a rare opportunity to sort of check the TI system against somebody who comes to me
Has
and
no
says,
TI.
yeah, well, somebody who comes to me and says, I think I'm TI polar. That rarely happens, right? So, all right, so Aimee, why don't I let you sort of guide the conversation from this point and with some of the thoughts you've been considering?
Yeah. No. So there's no question that I don't use TI whatsoever. And it's not just that test, but it kind of opened my eyes to like the fact that I just don't think, period, I guess. I'm not any kind of a thinking type, period. And I was kind of wondering, so what does that mean with that function test? So I guess why can't I use TI at all?
Okay,
And
well,
not just in the test, but just like in general, I realize that I just don't think like that, period.
Well, I think it's important to remember that the reason that everybody has a given deficit when it comes to cognitive functions is because it's necessitated by some area of corresponding power. So, for somebody who's FI tool, um, there are a lot of advantages to it. In other words, most things in life that you deal with that aren't public matters of discussion or something, it matters a lot more to know what's important to you and where your boundaries are than it does to know who's logically correct about something.
Right.
So the thing is, the ESFP is maximally able to know to deliberate the particularist, which is to say, you're maximally able to deliberate what you like, who you don't like, how much you like it, how long you like
Mhm.
it for, when you stop to like it, when you stop liking it, and such other matters. You also have a clear understanding of which interests you ought to prioritize over which other interests. So it's always the case that we have multiple things we want to do, and we can only do some of them. So, for example, you might want to date Bobby, Sue, Joe, and Diana, but Diana might insist that you date only her. Well, then you have to make a choice. Do I want to have Bobby, Sue, and Joe, or do I want to have Diana, or some other alternative? That's the kind of issue an ESFP can adjudicate well in their head. Whereas in contrast, if you're FI polar like me, as soon as I meet somebody and sleep with them once, I'm like, okay, let's get married so we can lock down this status so I don't have to worry about what we are, you know?
Okay. Okay.
So
Yeah.
you could even think of it as whereas ESFPs can't parse out ambiguities in logic, ENTPs can't parse out ambiguities in feelings.
Right. I guess it's just like what you said about deliberation, right? I feel like I'm a thinking type of person, but maybe I am confusing that with feeling deliberation. So there is a part of me, like you said, where I do that my entire life, where I'm like, do I like this or do I not like that? What do I value? That? Like I do that all the time with everything, right? But I guess I'm confusing that with thinking.
Well, the other thing to remember is thinking deliberation is not necessarily consistent at all with making decisions about anything.
Mhm.
TI thinking deliberation is about drawing conclusions, affirming this conclusion over that conclusion. Whether or not that leads to any action or anything useful at all to anybody is dependent on what it's paired with. So the thing is, if you were any FI, then
Mhm.
you'd have both the sort of nuanced particularist parsing of FI but you also have your action function be words. And so, in that regard, you'd be a more conflicted person. ESFPs,
Right.
they know what they want,
Right.
and they're able to actually do things to get it. So that differentiates them between ENFPs, who are the ultimate compromisers. ENFPs are always trying to find things that both are consistent with what they want and that they can expressively convey to people with words that hopefully reach agreement of some sort, you know?
Okay. Got it. I guess it's just funny because I'm like, so, like with you, because you don't have FI, it's like, do you not judge that way? Do you not think like, I like this better than this, or like, I feel like doing this today? Like, is that not a deliberation process for you? I just assume everybody has it, I guess. Yeah.
It only occurs in real time, and it doesn't impact my decision making. So, in other words, I actually am quite fond of FI as I experience it. I experience FI when I'm watching anime and sobbing.
Right. Okay.
Even if it's like it's not that sad, depending on what kind of moving it is, it might bring me to tears very easily. But that doesn't. Those kind of responses to things are experienced by me when I'm the object of something else. So if I'm observing or if I'm getting information and I'm discovering that there's something with a lot of FI content in it,
Yeah.
then I'll probably avoid it. So I won't read any articles that make me sad or angry usually. I try to avoid them.
Okay, that makes sense. Because on the other hand, for myself, if it has anything to do with like philosophy, logic, or like terminology, even, like I will just not even look at it. Like I don't think I ever practiced that, and I'm just naturally not drawn to things like that either.
Well, to the extent that that's true, that's what makes your interest in cognitive function so unique and interesting. Because I've encountered ESFPs in the past who want to talk about cognitive functions and stuff like that. But my typical experience is that ESFP has instrumental NI and polar TI and SI as an absolute value. What that plays out as in terms of their relationship with ideas is typically my experience trumps the pattern that might be imposed, anything that might be imposed by that pattern. In other words,
Right. Yeah.
you don't know me, my unique experience is bigger than any pattern you can impose upon me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it typically plays out like that. And then it also plays out like, to the extent that they want to engage the topic at all, they want to be the one talking about it, not the one learning about it.
Yep. That's yeah, that is totally me. I could, it's funny because I didn't notice anything about this, but like I was talking with my husband about it, and he was saying that like I do this thing where even when I'm talking about something like, I don't know, political or like whatever, I'll be talking, but I don't make any sense, so it's hard to like actually carry on the discussion with. Like, it's like, or like he says that like the more I talk, the more I'm contradicting myself, and I don't realize I'm doing it, so it's hard for him to like latch onto the conversation. So it's really just basically me expressing I guess it's just me expressing my feelings or my views on a thing. It's not necessarily like a engaging conversation.
Well, and that's the thing about FI is that it's important to remember that FI as a parsing function deals with more high resolution data. So if you're going to talk out your feelings on a matter, it's going to include some quote unquote contradictions. But if you think about it, are they really contradictions? It depends on your frame of reference. So for example, I might really be fond of Joe and think he's a great friend. I might also really be annoyed by Joe's habit of going like this every time he's thinking about something. Oh, so I'm conflicted then, right? I've got to choose between I like Joe a lot. I don't want to hurt his feelings or embarrass him, but I kind of want him to stop doing that. Should I say something those are, you can contain both those truths with your feelings. He's great. I feel very great deal of fondness towards him. And I'm super annoyed by that thing he's doing right now. Can both exist concurrently with FI. So whenever you're parsing something with FI and you're talking out how you feel about an idea, you're discussing the many various vectors or factors that make it a complicated decision, that make it irreducible to just words to resolve the matter. That in fact, it requires some experiential connection to really get it.
Right. Yeah. But it's like, I guess I'm not seeing the parsing about words thing. I think when I'm talking to somebody with TI, they're listening to my words. And so they're trying to see that consistency. But when I'm talking, it's like the words don't really have meaning. I'm just kind of expressing and weighing my decision. So it's hard for them to latch onto what I'm saying and to build from it. Because it seems very personal. It seems like a personal experience, like a personal view that I particularly have.
It's a different approach to language. So you probably think that you have things to express, and language more or less successfully conveys what you mean.
Right.
Whereas a TI user thinks words mean things, and you are more or less, you make more or less sense with the words you say,
Yeah, I guess I never thought of it that way. But okay, so then what's TE in an ESFP then? How does that work out? Because I think what I'm having trouble differentiating is like, okay, TE dom versus SE dom.
Well, it's because
I don't.
Yeah, it's because we use the word smart in two different ways, and we use the same word for it. So people say somebody's smart, they're talking about maybe verbal stuff, verbal reasoning, and or sounding articulate or something like that. Or people say they're smart, like that was a really smart way to do it, right? TE is the smart way to do it thing. So, while I might be more right about cognitive functions than most of the other people who are talking about it on YouTube, I'm also less successful at it. And the reason is because I'm TI smart at the expense of valuing being TE smart. So I want my words to be evaluated on their merits, detached from me entirely. So it's like, well, what difference does it make if I'm wearing my pajamas? What difference does it make if I'm smoking a bong? What difference? None of those things have anything to do with what my words are saying. Except only half the population thinks of words that way, as words as saying things instead of people saying things. And even among that half the population, most of them are not nearly as robust in their parsing via TI as is required by what I'm presenting. So in that regard, being genuinely smart means incorporating more TE for me than I normally do. And it's why an ESFP is likely to be a more successful public talker about typology than I ever will be, even if they're totally wrong. Right.
Okay, so now then, what is the difference with extroverted sensing? Because I hear so SE is more about like the action taking, but it's like, doesn't TE do the same thing? I guess isn't TE just as forceful or forthcoming as SE?
So neither of them are forceful per se. But here's SE without TE. I don't know how to use this latching mechanism that connects this gate to this pole. It's an unusual latching mechanism that I've not encountered before.
Right.
If you have TE, you're going to look at the latching mechanism, figure out how the latching mechanism works, and then take the corresponding action to open it. If you don't have TE, but you have SE, you're just going to try fumbling around and pushing it in a bunch of different places until something happens. Until something happens. So, in other words, TE tries to figure out how to do it. SE just does shit until something works.
Okay, so what's TE without SE then? Sorry, can you repeat that one?
Okay, so the thing is, you get SE without TE especially in the
Mhm.
INFJ, because they have SE4 and they don't have TE. So
TE, yeah.
I get to watch Rachel do that gate thing where she just pushes things around or whatever. Um, but the thing is, I'm not unlike that myself with my 6 slot TE. When it comes to especially physical examples of TE, I'll just push things around. But the alternative being like TE without SE is something like probably maximally realized in uh, INTJ, who's got SE fourth, maybe in maybe in ES. Yeah, I mean the thing is, you don't get anybody who's got TE too high up who doesn't also have fairly effective SE. So
Right.
like your ESTJ's got quite quite strong demonstrative 6 slot SE. Your
Mhm.
your ENTJ has got 3rd slot absolute value SE, and your ISTJ's got 5th slot absolute value SE. So it's like anytime you get TE pretty high up in the mix, you get SE pretty high up in the mix too.
Got it. Got it. So, let's say for an SE dominant person, let's say that their TE, well, for an ESFP, let's say that their TE is not developed, so to say, or it's like rather weak. Is that gonna make a difference in how two ESFPs look or like their
Well,
demeanor?
I think with the 2nd and 3rd slot function is it's one of the most particularist relationships among the functions, and it has to do somewhat with stage of development. So in other words, whereas your relationship between your 1 and your 5 is going to have a very similar quality of relationship no matter what functions they are, no matter who you are. The 2 3 is much more subject to changing over time because they're both conscious functions and neither of them is dominant nor subordinate. So they're both in the middle, right? Your 2
Yeah.
function is more active but less valued. Your 3rd slot function is more valued but less active. So it ends up being that kind of manager performer relationship where your 3rd slot is keeping track of whether or not your 2nd slot is performing purposefully. T is a good thing to have in the 3rd slot because it means you find it an absolute value to figure out how to do shit, and
Right.
it's your native implicit value to then execute those things and do them.
Yeah.
So ESFPs are often quite successful. Even if I am, like there was this one that I was getting big arguments with all the time, but she was for at least a stretch of time a registered nurse, had gone through all those programs necessary to become a registered nurse. Obviously, there's a fair amount of intellectual rigor required to become that, although it's not particularly TI kind of rigor. It's more TE kind of rigor. You need to learn all these protocols of processes of how to execute, like, take blood, execute, like, take blood pressure, like all those little things you gotta learn.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And then I had a question about extroverted feeling as well, because I think that I have pretty decent FE too.
You
I
do
mean,
have remarkably good FE, I think, for in comparison to other ESFPs I've encountered.
yeah, like I think that I do, but I guess it's like I don't know that that really rules my life, I guess. I don't know how to like better say that, but it's like I don't necessarily make decisions based off of that. It's like, but I know when to, like, I'm pretty good with people, I think. I would like to
Well,
think.
I would say that the quality of the FE of an ESFP is going to be inversely proportional to the amount the world demands FE from them. So, with a 6 slot function, you don't want to do it really. It's what you have to
Right.
do when your 2nd slot function's not good enough. So, at home, you're not going to be uh, inauthentic at all. You're not going to be
Right, right.
schmoozy or anything like that.
Huh.
Um, and to the extent that you are secure in your self concept, then you're probably not going to be guilty of what I think a lot of ESFPs are guilty of from an intuitive perspective in terms of FE display, which is here, let me tell you what you need to think about who I am. That's sort of how it can play out sometimes. Like I am going to demonstrate my FE by just telling you directly this is how you should perceive me, which feels kind of ham-fisted to intuitives, you know.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, like the way I use extroverted feeling is that like I think that when it comes to societal issues and things like that, I think that I speak about it, but it's like when pushed to, I guess this is where the TI comes in. It's like when pushed to debate about it or like to push it down people's throat or like actually speak up about it, there I just don't do it. But it's because I just don't have the confidence in me that I ever have deep understanding to actually like put it onto other people, which is weird because it's like with my authentic self, I definitely have like my own personal values and belief systems and things like this. But it's like when it comes to explaining it or
Okay, but
it's
see
like expected of yeah.
that's not really FE though. So what FE would
Oh,
be
okay,
is
okay.
like it's like okay, well here's an example of not a very flattering example, but an example of an FE having what I would call a clumsy six slot FE.
Okay.
Rachel had an ESFP housemate in college, and this
Mm-hmm.
this this housemate came back and said, Rachel, these people that I was talking to said that I'm not deep, but I'm deep, and you people think you're deep, so give me a song that I can like and listen to that will confirm for these people that in fact I am deep. In other words, in other words, she's she's that person has detached from the idea of being deep any link to reality. In other words, she doesn't care at all. She doesn't think that their perceptions of her are linked to how she actually is, because how she actually is something only she can know by her fifth slot SI experience.
Right.
You know, the quintessential ESFP comeback is, you don't know me. You haven't walked a mile in my shoes.
Right. Okay. So okay. Yeah, I mean, because I do that. I just didn't think that was like six slot FE. But isn't that the same thing as just like you want validation from people? Doesn't like any like extroverted judging function do that? Like, doesn't TE do that as well, where they kind of want that like validation, saying that they're the correct one or whatever, and then it's like,
No,
um,
TE is the function that laughs all the way to the bank. You may have
oh,
won.
okay.
You may have won the argument, but I'm cashing the checks.
Oh, okay. No, I don't.
So TE is smart
Okay.
like that, right? TE is about outcomes. TE doesn't care if others agree that it's right or not, as long as it's consistent with its own goals
Right.
and
Okay.
solvency and stuff.
Yeah.
The thing about FE is, for people who are FE front stack, there's a lot of, especially intuitives with FE in the front stack, there's a whole lot of, I hope you didn't think I meant yeah, because
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
there's a lot of concern that the meanings conveyed back and forth between people don't imply things that the listener might infer that aren't intended to be covered by the meaning expressed. So
Yeah.
that's part of being an intuitard, is constantly fretting over subtext, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. Okay.
But when it's on the back slot, it's not nearly so person defining, and as a consequence, you kind of feel as though when you have to turn it on, it's an imposition, and how well or clumsily you do it kind of depends on how often it's demanded of you. If it's demanded of you too much, it'll get fussy, just like my TE will.
Right, right. So would it be like FE six slot like I get other people to like kind of do the thing that I wanted to do in the first place anyway, but I kind of use FE in like a strange way. That's not actually extroverted feeling. Like I'll like I feel like I am pretty concerned when it comes to like when it's about what I want to do or something I value. I'll and people disagree with it. I'll want to like band people together almost to agree with what I my side or like what I value. I don't know. It's like
No, it's a great way of putting it. If you want to get everybody to do what you want, you're going to have to care, unfortunately, somewhat about how they feel.
right. So it's
So,
kind of like a last ditch attempt or something where I'm kind of like, okay, well, if that's going to happen, I'm going to have to use FE to almost validate that what I feel is the correct way to feel or what I value is the right thing to do. Um,
What you really have to validate is that you're a team player from an FE perspective.
right.
So
Yeah.
FE people want to know that you're a team player, that you're not just
Hmm.
being selfish. So
Right.
if you want to be selfish but win over FE people, you have to convey to them that in words that you're a huge team player while still getting what you want. So
Okay. Okay.
it's like you talk about you talk in ways that are very inclusive and team playery without actually changing your position on what you want. And then a lot of FE people, if you're super nice, will just sort of go along with it, you know?
Right. Right. Um, I guess would my lack of TI make me kind of suck at FE then? It's like if
It,
I'm not able.
it doesn't make you suck at FE. It just means you can't back it up with
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
if it's
That's
challenged by TI people.
yeah. That's what I was trying to get at. It's like because I tend to do that and I kind of suck at it in a sense, but it's like I don't really know why I suck at it because I feel like I'm really good at FB, but it's like what I have trouble with, and this now that I kind of know myself, is probably putting the words correctly to actually look like a team player or actually say the things that'll make me look like that team player.
Yeah. So
But
here's a trick for you. When the TI person says something like, "But that doesn't make any sense because of meow,"
yeah,
you say, and this just goes to show how much more powerful we are as a team. Look what you contribute. You contribute this amazing, amazing logic that just can't be replicated by anybody else here, and that's why we appreciate you so much. Now back to what I want to do.
right. Okay, okay. Yeah, no, okay, so like that makes sense to me because it's like I never use FE in that way. It's like I'll if I'm ever using FE, it'll be like, I don't know, throwing a compliment here and there or like but I guess it's not really FE either. It's like I guess that's kind of awkward. It's like I kind of assume that they'll like me or that they'll like do what I want to do because I'm saying nice things about you or I'm on good terms, I guess. Um, but that's not really.
Well, it's funny
I'm
that
not.
the funny thing is FE users assume everybody else is FI. FI users assume everybody else is FE. So in other words, being an FE user means, you know, I don't care. I'm a team player. What do you want to do? As long as everybody else is happy,
Mm,
I'm happy because it means I'm liked, I'm approved of, I'm included,
right.
I'm whatever. So the thing is, of course, if you're with another FE user, they're the same way. So they're also going to be like, I don't know, what do you want to do?
Right. Right.
Eh,
Okay.
But that's why it's kind of important to have them in opposite slots in terms of instrumentality or absolute valueness if you're a part of a couple. So Rachel's 2 FE means she's more FE than me, but she doesn't really care
Hmm.
about it for
Hmm.
herself. She doesn't need a whole lot of affirmation or praise. Maybe more reassurance sometimes, but not affirmation or praise so much. Uh, Whereas I don't really care about fairness. As long as I make sure things are extra fair for her, so that I can't ever be accused of being unfair, then then I don't really care about the fairness for me. As long as I'm in a really positive, affirming relationship that keeps me ontologically safe feeling. Because I don't. FI polar means you don't have your own source of real self worth.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I kind of touched upon this last time, but what do you think about like so if my husband's an ISFJ, but he's like a textbook ISFJ, would that cause like a lot of tension at all, or is it a pretty good balance because FIFE?
Well, it's not a terrible relationship, primarily because, as I was discussing with Rachel earlier when I was taking a bath, ESTPs, ISFJs. Now, in my opinion, the proper duality relationship, in other words, the ideal romantic pairing for perceivers, is to have the opposite perceiving, the mirror perceiving function as a dominant. So, in my opinion, you should be with an SI dom. Now you say
Okay, okay.
you're with an ISFJ. You'll always see eye to eye on the SESI stuff. In other words,
Mm-hmm.
you do stuff so that you can establish an experientially gratifying reality. In other words,
Mm-hmm.
one in which the comforts you expect are consistent, the newnesses you need are consistent, the everything is you have a clear story of who you are and what you've done and where you've gone and what you who you've seen and
Yeah.
whatever. So
Yeah.
that's important. Similarly, the actual doing of things, the executing of things, is important to the SI dom. Now,
Mm-hmm.
the challenge, in my vision of things, the ideal partner would be ISTJ for ESFP, but ISFJ is not a bad partner because at least that default expectation I was talking about, where FI people think everyone's FE and FE people think everyone's FI,
Yeah.
that works in your case.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, both the Fs are actually instrumental for both of you. So one of the reasons you might perceive yourself as a thinker, or your husband as a thinker, or seem like you have a lot of thinkery qualities, is because both of you have a thinking function as an absolute value in the third slot. In other words,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
accomplishments on one of the two thinking vectors is going to be your most satisfying manifestation of being. For me, it's
Right, right.
successfully effing and getting everybody to like me and think I'm competent. For you, it's successfully figuring out how to solve things or attain goals,
Yeah.
and that's and then of course actually doing it is on the easier side for you because it's your dominant function. Your husband's gonna go, wow, I am so impressed by your ability to do things, and and you'll be like, wow, I am so impressed by your ability to remain consistent and attend to our physical needs and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's
that
definitely the case.
that should work out fine. The other issue is the third slot thing. Your absolute value scorecard TE is his blind spot, but
Yeah.
that's not really a problem because third slot's selfish anyway. You don't really want somebody else to contribute. With my FE, it's like, no, mom, I can be popular myself. Don't help me.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
his TI, therefore, he doesn't want your help or whatever the TI anyway. So it's probably worked out fine. The only conflict I see is that both of you countervalue the other's tool function. So you just there's probably going to be a lot of instances where you think you're approaching a problem through the wrong frame of reference, where you think the other one's approaching it through the wrong frame of reference. So you might think,
Yeah.
husband, you shouldn't be using FE here, while he's thinking, wife, you shouldn't be using FI here.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree with that. Yeah. Um, that I think like he's kind of like showed me that I'm definitely not an F user, but like when because he's like a strong F user, like when we're in a certain situation or whatever, like he's the one that'll have to tell me to like be more professional or like don't say certain things or don't swear or like, but then it makes me feel like limited in a way, and that's where I kind of resent the like, oh my god, like isn't it like freedom of expression or like why are you like like
Aimee, a funeral is not an appropriate place to whip out your titties, okay?
That's a good example. Oh, that's so funny. But yeah, it's like it's especially because he's a nurse too, and it's like when we were with this like nursing crowd, and like I'll just like tell my stories the way I tell it, and just, like I'll be like swearing up and down, or like I'll say certain things, and he's always the one that has to remind me, like aside, and just be like, "Can you stop talking like that?" Like, and I'm like, but to me, it's kind of like, okay, but if you're putting up a front and you're not your authentic self, then how are they your friends? But it's like, I don't know. I guess that's where we kind of differ.
You end up with bruised shins from him kicking you under the table.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. And then yeah.
the thing is, he sees those friendships as being ultimately about those people and how their perceptions of him validate him,
Right.
as a
Yes.
basic
Yes.
tool of going about life. Whereas you're like, those people,
Yeah.
what about my needs? you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Yep. That makes sense.
Which,
Okay.
which, by the way, was at one time I had I really wanted to make a band, and that was the name I was going to name my band. That I really wanted to make a band called "What About My Needs." Isn't that a great
It's a pretty
band
cool name, actually. That's a really good band name. Yeah, it's funny. That led me into like, well, actually, now with this conversation, I know I'm not an NE user, but like, I was kind of like, okay, so I'm pretty positive I have TI polar, but then I was kind of like, okay, so then how come I'm not NESI? But then, after talking with you, I'm like, never mind.
You know, it's like the thing to remember also is you have eighth slot extroverted intuition. So just as
Yeah.
I end up actually doing quite a bit, if you were to sort of account for my days and look for examples of extroverted sensing, well, obviously I spend a lot more time. I'm spending a lot more time talking with you and doing the FENE TI kind of thing here with you than I did on the TESE part. But as you could attest, when you first arrived, I wasn't ready to go because I was still setting up these ridiculous pedestals.
I'm excited to see how this is gonna look. By the way, I have no idea how I look with these pedestals on.
It looks ridiculous, especially since you don't have a green screen. You've got your background and yourself on top of the pedestal. With me, it's just my shoulders and my head on top of my pedestal. You've got a pink pedestal, and I've got a gray pedestal. I figured we'd stick with existing gender norms at the risk of infuriating everybody.
Oh my gosh. I like your outfits, by the way, in your recent video.
Thank you. I intentionally put this on so I would look nicer than just having a t-shirt. I figure it looks nicer if I got this long sleeve shirt on, even though it's like 95 degrees outside.
Oh my god, I know. I was like, God, that looks so hot.
Are you in Southern California too, or are you just in the same time zone?
No, I'm in California too.
Oh,
yeah, Southern California. Yeah. But I was like, wow, that looks really hot.
Man, has it been hot lately or what? It has been really hot.
It's really hot. Yeah, I can't. Like, I'm even sweating right now. I don't know how you're wearing that sweater.
Well, I'm inside with air conditioning. You just got to stay inside for between 10 and 5 p.m. 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. basically. Anytime between there, it's like too hot to go outside.
Oh my god, it's so crazy that you're doing that. But that's like good effort, I guess, putting on the sweater.
Well, I get scolded so much for my shitty TE. Like, Eric, if you want to be successful, maybe you should try harder. Well, I am trying hard. I'm just trying hard only and exclusively the one area I want to try hard in. And that's the problem is that TE figures out how to have your cake and eat it too. So it's like a TI tool user that's going to be the thing that infuriates them most of all is when somebody insists on having their cake and eating it too. What that means is a TI tool user is coming to conflict with an FI tool user who's insisting on some apparent contradictory thing or not willing to agree that meow words are excluded because of meow words. And then the TI tool user goes, you can't have your cake and eat it too. Well, TE says, yes, you can. We'll figure out how.
Yeah. Okay, so how would your FE respond to my FE then? Right? How's your third to my fifth?
Well,
or what do you think?
You're six. Okay, so the thing is...
Yeah.
Like I said before, for whatever reason, you don't annoy me at all.
Okay, that's good.
I don't know why. And, a lot of people might say, well, Eric, maybe she's not an ESFP then, since it seems as though just about every ESFP you've encountered before has annoyed you. Well, the point is, it's like people, the more particularist a person's function stack is, the more chance they have to be defined by their particulars. So it's like, first of all, most of the time I'm encountering ESFPs, I'm encountering the ones who are coming into my channel to argue with me.
Right.
And so obviously they're coming in with their FI tool to argue against my TI tool. It's going to immediately create, you can't have your cake and eat it too. So I'm going to be annoyed by that. But that doesn't mean they're representative of the general population of ESFPs at all. I'm sure there's plenty of very pleasant ESFPs who don't want to attack me. People like Aimee.
Yeah, no, I think that, like, I actually appreciate your TI approach too. Like, I don't know, I just feel like there's a value in defining things, especially I feel like in the type community, there's a lot of like TE, like here's what the cognitive functions are, Carl Jung. There's a lot of that. And I think it's different to like hear like, no, like fuck him, like like here's my reasoning or here's my definition. So I mean,
Well,
yeah.
the other way I think TE expresses in cognitive functions is it expresses as like a C.S. Joseph style approach where cognitive
Yeah.
functions are skills you develop and master or something like,
Mm-hmm.
this sort of black belt of typology you grow
Yep.
into when you're a master like C.S. Joseph. It's just complete nonsense. That's not how cognitive functions are. They don't they don't provide a framework of aspiration. They're descriptive of a person's special qualities. That is to say, qualities they can't change and won't ever change.
Right. Yeah. I kind of agree too. Like, after watching a few like YouTube channels and things like that, like, I mean, I used to do this too, but it's like I kind of don't like the self-development area of cognitive functions. I don't know. This is just me, but it's just like, um, I think it's a good tool to understand yourself, yes, but I don't think that you can necessarily use it to like coach. I don't know. That's just
I mean, the
me.
bottom line is self development through typology is going to be a meaningful approach to only certain types and absolutely not
Right.
to other types. So, for
Yeah.
you, with an absolute value of your own experience, at the end of the day, you know and understand that no abstraction can encapsulate you better than you can know yourself.
Right. Yeah. Yes. Yes. That's how I feel too. It's like, I mean, at the end of the day, it's like the way I view other people is that, well, your experiences kind of like make you. So it's kind of like at the end of the day, you can use this as a tool, but to use it to develop yourself and trump the experiencing part is a little like almost narcissistic. Like, I don't know. Yeah.
It's contrary to the values of your stack. The thing is, for somebody like me who's a very metaphysical type, I am very poor at understanding things through experience until they get
Right.
translated into ideas that I can metabolize more effectively.
Yeah.
What you can see in somebody like Rachel, who's an NI Dom, whose SI is always subservient to it in an instrumental value, is oftentimes she'll fret about patterns indicating statuses that are totally contradicted by huge bulks of experience. So even though it's extremely obvious we're compatible, if she reads something in astrology today that says
Mm-hmm.
you and Eric might be incompatible because of this, she'll fret about it, regardless of
Yeah.
the bulk of the data to the contrary.
Right. Yep.
So
That
it,
makes sense.
and the thing is, as I said in a video yesterday, whatever your 4-5 is your translation thing. So you can actually, as an
Mhm.
ESFP and ESTPs, ENTPs, and ENFPs, can all kind of translate between SI and NI. In other words,
Yeah.
you get the idea of patterns being determinate, although you reject it because it's your instrumental value. And you get the idea of experience being determinate, and you embrace it because it's your absolute value. For me, it's
Mhm.
reversed, but we both can translate between SI and NI. If it's not in the 4-5, you're much more defined by your knowledge function being that way and not the other way.
Mm. Okay. Because you originally I was typed as that's another thing to do with SI polar. I was typed as SI polar, um, but I feel like I have SI. I just feel like SI is kind of like a skipping function for me, or it's like a I
Uh,
do it. I'm pretty good at it, but it's just not, I guess, valuable to me. Like, or
it's
I'll skip over it.
it's an autopilot thing. So for me, with the NI as an autopilot thing, it means I have to know what the obvious, correct, true single path is to deviate from it.
Hmm.
You can see that most clearly in jokes. So, for example, I went to the head shop in San Gabriel and I was buying a box of off-brand whippets. And this particular brand of off-brand whippets called Swips, they have pictures of like naked ladies with whipped cream on them on the box.
Okay.
So I I went to the cash register and I made the joke to the cashier, you know, there aren't actually any naked ladies inside these boxes.
No.
Like it's false advertising. So in that case, I'm taking the obvious truth and that I have to know automatically with my ignoring NI, and I'm twisting it to try to make it funny.
Right.
The same thing works with you and SI. Your SI is an assumed thing you have to always have in place in order to be an SE person, which is in order to be opportunistic, scanning the environment, taking action, deciding things, whatever, you've got to have to not pay attention to, am I physically feeling good right now? Am I... You have to not pay attention to your internal body, and you have to not be constrained too much by what's happened before either. So in other words, to be opportunistic means just because a similar opportunity before presented itself and it didn't pan out doesn't mean it's a bad idea to seize this opportunity. This one might pan out. So that requires ignoring some of your SI while also absolutely valuing it, because a lot of times it is informative. So it's this mixed relationship. To be an SE Dom means to have strong SI that's ignoring, which is to say you set it on autopilot so you don't have to voluntarily do anything with it.
Yeah. That's kind of what I meant when I said I kind of skip over it, I guess. It's just like in the moment, if there's a better opportunity for me, I obviously have to take action upon it. But I mean, if the past experience benefits me, I mean, that obviously I'm going to have to look at that, but it's not something that like I rule my life with, but it's definitely there. Like I have to obviously remember the way I did something at some point, or I have to understand it.
Well, it's kind of like,
if I'm going to take action. Yeah.
It's kind of like, honey, I know we were planning on going to the PTA meeting tonight, but that was before Judy offered to do lines of coke with me.
In an extreme example, yeah, pretty much. I wasn't thinking coke, but cool. That's essentially it. Like, for example, like I know I need to take care of like some kind of like a fitness routine. I know I need to have a routine set, but for the most part, if I can exercise the way I want to, or like according to a particular day, I'll just do it that way. But I'm aware that I should probably remain more consistent with it, or I should like write it down or like something.
But you probably also don't beat yourself up about being inconsistent.
No, because I will because I will always be like, yeah, but you are doing it. So then there comes that like you just kind of throw away that SI fire, but it's there, like, yeah.
Right. And so the other thing about your fifth slot is it's how you judge the external world. So if you see somebody who's constantly, let's say you're working with somebody and they have a very weak constitution. Like every 10 minutes they want to take a break. You're going to think those people aren't legitimate, basically. You're going to say like, I hereby invalidate you. You are not a good person.
Yeah, pretty much. But then like, okay, so with that example, is that also consistent with SI polar too, or is that a little bit different?
SI polar like wouldn't notice that or would attribute it to something else.
I know what you're...
They'd be like, oh, this person is taking a break every 10 minutes. They must have someone they love they're contacting on their phone. That would be mistaking an excessive SI need for an FI need. Or,
Oh, yeah, sure, yeah.
It could be, they need time to figure this out logically. That would be mistaking an SI need for a TI need. So ENFJ or ENTJ might make that mistake about somebody who is physically needing to take a break every 10 or 15 minutes.
Right, because they're mixing it up with their FI or TI.
Yeah, they can mix it up with their fourth slot.
Okay, that makes sense. I always, I didn't know this before, but I did recognize that NI and TI for me are almost like the same thing. I didn't... It's hard for me to differentiate what exactly TI is and how different is that from NI understanding too. Right.
Well, and basically the difference is this: NI things are holistic syntheses that are irreducible. In other words, they're greater than the sum of their parts. If we get synergy, They represent synergy. So it's like if you have a frog that's alive and healthy, and you take out its heart, it's not 10% less alive and healthy. It needs that to be alive and healthy at all. It's a binary thing, right? In other words, you have to have all the parts of this system working together for the thing to be. If you take out a one spark plug and disconnect the gas line to the car, it doesn't work at all anymore. It's not like it works 10% less well, even though you've messed with less than 10% of its components. So in that regard, it's irreducible. Whereas TI stuff is always reducible. I can prove it, or I can either validate or falsify any set of statements, because every element to the TI consideration is reducible. And so there's never any appeal to an interactive whole. And part of the problem with the way people get cognitive functions wrong is they keep doing this thing where they go, you keep saying this is a motion picture, Eric, but I keep looking at the film one frame at a time, and these pictures aren't moving.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a TI thing too. It's like TI wants things to be binary and to be definable so that they can eliminate certain things. But not everything works like that. Some things require a holistic interaction and create a reality that is irreducible, and that's the kind of thing that NI takes care of. So when NI says, you're an ESFP, therefore you're like this, it's saying these things are implicit to your identity. They aren't attributes that you can change. They're not like your muscles that you can work and get bigger. They're like wings, you'll never grow them.
Okay. Whereas TI, on their other hand, would try to do that even more.
Yeah,
or to break it apart.
Right, excessively TI people will negate this idea on the grounds that if you look at any still image here, that the basic claim that this is a moving picture is falsified by that still image.
Right. Okay. Got it. Huh. Okay.
I note it most in ESTPs. They do that. They love to do that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, NI for me is like, I don't know, I thought I was really good at NI, but I guess I really only use it, like, I guess in like a stress situation. Like, I'll tend to like obsess over like how things are gonna pan out. Rare, but I'll really like obsess over it. And in my mind, I thought that was like, thinking, I guess.
I mean, how things are gonna pan out has something to do, means you're using three functions probably there. Your extroverted intuition, your introverted intuition, and your extroverted thinking. So, of the three, only one of them is an absolute value, your extroverted thinking. So probably in situations like that, it happens most when your extroverted thinking can't come up with a good solution or approach to solving the problem, and you're forced to rely on your extroverted intuition to think of ways things could go wrong, and your introverted intuition to conclude which way it's going to ultimately go. Neither of which are strong in that regard. Now, the testable aspects of NI for you seem to be quite strong, which is to say, when you're asked to display NI as a subject, you do so with verve.
What's that?
It's just like with gusto, or or as the Mexicans say, con ganas.
Yeah, I don't know what that means. But okay.
It means with gusto, con ganas.
Oh, okay. Okay. I mean, you're saying that because I haven't, I am able to explain it that way, or like.
Well, what I'm saying is that the NI you're talking about as being problematic for you and or instrumental, which sounds like fourth slot NI, is NI that you're using as an agent. That is to say, to know ultimately about yourself and what you should do, what's going on in your own life. The NI that I try to test with the RAT test, which is not a great NI test, it's turned out, but is somewhat linked to it. That's when the world demands of you, demonstrate some NI about the world. You feel much more comfortable doing that than you do using it on your own life and self.
Yeah.
because of
Yeah.
course the stakes are a lot less high for you from your perspective when you're telling other people, well, here's what my NI says about this. Do with it as you wish. You're assuming that they, like you, are ultimately going to be capable of parsing and judging the thing for themselves according to their own interests.
Yeah.
So, whereas when you're applying it to yourself, it's going to run afoul necessarily sometimes of your introverted feeling. It's going to run afoul of your desire to always be able to solve everything ordinally with TE. Some things don't get solved like that, you know. Some things do, some things don't.
Right.
And
Yep.
and then you really hate, everybody does, being pressed on their 8 slot function. Is what I would call your insecurity function. So if the world demands shit of you, you'll give them FE. If that doesn't work, you'll give them NI. If that doesn't work, this is assuming SE and FI don't work. This is assuming SE and FI don't work.
Yeah.
Then you'll give them FE. That doesn't work. Then you'll give them NI. That doesn't work. Then you'll try to give them NE. And and you won't like it at all, and you'll feel like you're being asked to do things that you're not supposed to be asked to do. And
Yeah.
if somebody critiques you on your originality or creativity, you'll feel insecure and say, no, I'm using this function the appropriate amount. People like
Yeah.
Eric are using it too much.
Right. Yep. That totally resonates with me. Yeah. Like I have any, I think like enough to like, I mean, to create videos and stuff, I kind of need any, like I need like ideas and I'm like generating it, but I mean, it's only just because I want to be entertaining or I want to like, I guess, give other people a good experience, but to just come up with in my own future, to come up with alternatives and things like that is like a little bit dark for me. Like I can get really stubborn about that.
Right. Whereas as an any Dom, I have the opposite problem. I'm unreasonably optimistic that new ideas and new whatever will resolve whatever appears to be a looming long-term problem as I arrive at those problems, which is a foolhardy approach to life, really. But depending on your circumstances, it can be non-fatal.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that was kind of my questions. I just like wanted to, you helped me in like talking about all the functions. Like I just wanted to know, yes, in TI polar, I know that, but I kind of wanted to touch on the other cognitive functions.
I appreciate you contacting me, Amy, and this is a perfect amount of time for us to do it too. It's just clocked in right at an hour. So I think people are really going to enjoy the video, and I think your questions were great, and hopefully I gave you answers that were satisfying.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.